Okay, picking up where we left off on the last video. Last thing that I posted or did was 1897. In 1907, the financial collapse was planned for America. Most of the rest of this stuff I'm gonna glass over. Any of the dates, you can go back, check the dates, and look it up. I mean, shit, everybody's got Google. 1912, 1913, Federal Reserve moves in. And hopefully by now everybody knows that the Federal Reserve is neither federal or a reserve. It's a private owned bank. It belongs to the banking cartel. And that is the root of our problem. The very first dollar ever borrowed from the Federal Reserve Bank, we still pay interest on today. 1914, World War I starts after bank agents assassinate Austrian Archduke. Bank finances both sides of the war. The war ends in 1918. Germany's decimated. And think about it. Germany was absolutely destroyed in 1918. And in less than 20 years, they have one of the most powerful forces on earth. Their technology was insane. 1933. Well, let me back up. 1929, we had the stock market collapsed by design. I mean, everything that happens, that stuff is not happening in this country by accident. In the 1920s, America was booming. The problem was America was getting to a point to where it could have thrown the bank out, the Federal Reserve out. So the Federal Reserve at all times has to have control of the country. How do they do that? Putting them in debt, causing a war. 1933, an executive order, 6102, by Franklin Delano Roosevelt, forbidding hoarding of gold and silver. This comes from the request of the cartel. What they're doing is forcing everybody to give up their wealth. The gold and silver. Independence. Financial independence. They're stealing everybody's precious metals and giving them paper. You know, people should have just been smart enough to anyway. They put it under the Trading with the Enemy Act. See, they make these acts and stuff to make it sound like if you go against it, you're aiding the enemy. Just like the George Bush's Patriot Act. Has anybody ever just really thought about how fast the Patriot Act, that huge, I don't know, liberty stealing deal was done? That thing was wrote long before 9/11. I don't give a shit what anybody says. (1917) Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917, amended by Emergency Bank Act. This required all persons to deliver on or before May 1st, 1933, all but a small amount of gold and silver bullion, coins, whatever. Alright, now, during the 1930s, Prescott Bush worked for a company that a lot of us know, but we know it now as ThyssenKrupp. It was Thyssen back then. But he worked for a company that supplied a lot of the materials that Germany needed for their weapons and their equipment. Along with that, Prescott worked with, I believe it was Paul Warburg, Now, James Warburg was the son. I believe Paul Warburg was the head of the Federal Reserve Bank at the time, and one way or another, they used money from the Federal Reserve to finance a lot of stuff and just about the whole deal in Nazi Germany, along with the Vatican. You know, time to close your ears. The Vatican and the United States did most of the financing for Germany. The people in the United States didn't do it. The Federal Reserve did it. During the 1930s, Prescott Bush aided Hitler's Germany. He was a director involved with the financing of Nazi Germany. Even after the U.S. entered the war, he continued to work with support and profit from financing Hitler's rise to power, along with the Vatican. February 17th, 1950, James Warburg on the Senate floor announces to everyone, you would think that our senators and congressmen, if they were honorable at all, they would have fixed this, but they're all under control. They know if they go up against these people, they're going to die. 1950, James Warburg says, we shall have a one world government whether or not we like it. The question is only, will it be by conquest or consent? Paul Warburg was the father of James and the father of the Federal Reserve System. Now, our famous Adam Schiff that's been head of the House impeachment hearings. Adam Schiff and his family, or Adam Schiff's family, is the Warburgs. So now you have to start looking at all the different people in office today. You start looking back at the ancestry of all these people, you'll start seeing that more of these people are descendants of the banking cartel. April 27th, 1961, JFK tries to warn the U.S. of what was going on. They're slowly enslaving everybody. They create a catastrophe. They take your rights. Every time they pass a law and they use crimes as the reason for passing the law, is safety and health and security. The only people those laws affect are the people that obey the laws, and it strips them of their liberties, which are then enforced by the ones that don't know any better. June 4th, April 27, 1961, JFK tries to warn everybody. June 4th, 1963, JFK signs Executive Order 11110, stripping the Federal Reserve of its power over the U.S. November 22nd, 1963, just a few months later, he's assassinated. If you still believe that Oswald just randomly took out JFK for no reason, I don't know what to tell you. Ronald Reagan and George Bush, they were running against each other for president. George Bush was supposed to have won, which the Agenda 21 was already written. Reagan won, of course. The assassination attempt on him was by Hinckley. The Hinckley family and the Bush family are real tight. Hinckley's dad and one of the Bushes, the day after that, were having dinner in New York City. Reagan was supposed to have died. Bush takes the helm, and they keep moving forward with Agenda 21. It doesn't work. Reagan holds on for 2 terms, which backs their plan of their Agenda 21 to have their way by the turn of the century. They rewrite it for Agenda 2030. If you don't know anything about Agenda 2030, the UN doesn't try to hide it. It's everything. You got to remember, everything is done for safety, health, and security. For your safety and your health and your security, we're going to control everything that you do. We're going to control your money. You're going to work real hard for what you have, but we're going to take half of it to give to somebody else to make sure they're the same, and we keep all y'all subdued and submissive. Then you got the Depression, 2008, 2009. That all depends on, I know they claim recession. That depends on where you were in it. You know, if you lost everything, that's pretty depressing. That's a depression to people. They lose their home. They have nowhere to go. They're homeless. They're, you know, and it just depends on where you are. Now, foreclosures are, I mean, I don't know what the percentage was. I haven't looked it up, but I would say that probably 40% of the people in the country, maybe a little less, went bankrupt. So you have somebody that has a house that's financed by Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, whatever, a government lending agency, which is Federal Reserve. It's all tied. They foreclose. The bailout pays all these banks those mortgages, and those banks get the property. So it was one of the biggest scams to ever hit, and nobody raised an eyebrow. You know, the bank loans the people the money. The people foreclose on the house. The bank gets the property, and the government pays them for it. That's why isn't there people in jail? You want to enforce some laws? Let's go get the crooks that's doing this shit. There's plenty more stuff to do. I got to stop this one too. Look, anybody that's gung ho, let's go to Civil War, you're like an idiot. You know, as soon as you start some shit, and it was widespread, you can bet your ass everybody in Europe, every country in Europe would be coming here. And the reason why is because the banking cartel owns the U.S., they own Britain, they own Germany, they own Spain, they own France. They are not going to let us little people take this country back. So when you say, yeah, fight to the death, you're going to. I mean, you can just about bet your ass. Now, it may last a long time, but the longer it lasts, the more people starve. You'll have no food. I mean, you won't be able to go to the grocery store. Come on. The best chance we have is to do this right with the politicians. I mean, it ain't gonna fix it, but it's a good chance that we'll be able to buy a little more time and slowly start turning things around. There's always a chance, and prayer doesn't hurt. I don't believe in God. Hey, I promise you, you're facing a gun barrel. You're gonna pray to something. Anyway, subscribe. I got more stuff coming.